Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday with me, Ryan, aka Mac. This is a weekly show which covers everything from the world of Star Citizen over the past week. Links to everything discussed can be found in the description below, so let's get on with it. So this week's Around the Verse came from the UK, the Foundry 42 office in Manchester. They started off by talking about the cargo system, which is very exciting. This is coming with 3.0. You'll be able to pick up a box, take the box to the ship, and then take that ship with the box inside to a market stall and then sell it. With this also brings salvage and pirating from other players, and then you can salvage wrecks and take the cargo from there, or you can be a pirate and hold them up and take the cargo and then sell it yourself. So this will include buying, taking, selling, the full shebang. Basically traders, so if you're a trader by profession, you will go to a port and then from a computer you will buy, say, for example, 200 to 300 units of steel, and then the cargo will automatically be generated in your ship, so you won't have to take each item individually. However, when it comes to being a salvager or a pirate, you will need to physically transfer each box. So if you discover a ship that's derelict, you cannot just automatically send that box to your ship, you have to pick it up yourself and carry it across. Same goes for the pirates. It's much more lengthy gameplay for salvagers and pirates, but it'll also be fun to see what you've got. And obviously this would not be as much fun if you had to carry 200 of these boxes across each time, so it's kind of balanced that way. Cargo boxes are already built, and the ships have interiors to include them, which is why it's coming to 3.0. It looks as though from these pictures they have many different cargo boxes or styles available, even liquid tanks to carry them across. We will see markets in Olisar, Levski, Grimhex, plus I'm sure with all the other planets that are coming online we'll see them there as well. So once trade routes are established, then pirates will be informed and then they can camp on these routes waiting for transport. This will also mean that players are required for escorting, protection, and then even bounty hunting if there's a particular pirate who is causing a lot of trouble. So it's not just traders that benefit from cargo, there are many careers that are covered by this. After that we looked at the Ursa Rover, which again we saw in 3.0. Basically they wanted a vehicle to have enough clearance for off-road driving but also fit within the constellation. And unfortunately, the model that they had did not actually fit. So the wheels fold up and then deploy when they're needed. Plus the turret retracts to the side of it when it's on the constellation, all just to fit, and then it'll open up again once it's on the ground. Very cool. In the cockpit, you have one pilot and one navigator. The consoles fold away as you are getting in and out, as we saw in 3.0. The cargo bay has seats, lockers, and another access point, which I originally pointed out in my previous video that was probably a toilet. This is just another door that you can get into. There is no toilet in there. But it also allows you to hold a bit of cargo. Not too much, but enough just to transport it back and from wrecks and so forth. As you can imagine, this will really help with planetary exploration. You don't just have to walk everywhere. Until now, we've only had the Grey Cats, and that's not very multi-crewy, so this is the first multi-crew ground vehicle. And to finish off with, they just pointed out you can do drive-by shootings, which look just so cool. Anyway, the Dragonfly was up after that in this ship shape. Completely new category of vehicle. Chris Roberts wanted a more personal vehicle, and this was it. Everything is exposed to all the components, so it needed to be modelled. It's a very difficult one to model because obviously in the bigger ships you can hide components and just say they're there, whereas in this ship you need to actually have them physically viewable. The 3.0 demo showed the basic model of the Dragonfly in its state. There is more to be added. Ground flight plus the rear seat setup needs to be implemented, as well as holding a weapon while sat on the back. There is a third mode that we didn't see, which is the compact mode, which will allow you to store it on your ships, where, again, like the Ursa, it just folds up slightly to allow for less of a space required. For the sound of it, they had a Harley Davidson, plus some sort of ground rushing and wind rushing, etc., just to add the sounds and the feelings and give you more of an atmosphere while playing in it. I'll let you listen to that because it does sound pretty cool.
And hover vehicles, like the Dragonfly, I think provide a brilliant contrast between what we're used to, the sort of the space travel aspect, where you've got points of sound, very sharp, contrasty points of sound, very clean in the void. And then on planet side, we've got this much more grounded. When there's an explosion, it's going to echo around.
Anyway, from there, we had a community update with Tyler Witkin. The sale is going on till the 6th of September. This is for the Reliant and the 2 Argo ships. MVP went to Alyssiana, our very own redacted Alyssiana. Congratulations for her content created unlimited.com, which is pretty much everything Star Citizen. I highly suggest checking that out and saving it to your favourites. A really cool webpage for just everything Star Citizen. And finally, we, as you know, in 3.0, we had a Starfarer wreck which was explorable via EVA in space. Now, we took a behind-the-scenes look at derelict ships, and this isn't just in space derelict ships, this is on planet. So obviously, catastrophic damage to your ship means that it will break apart and be no longer able to be repaired. The 3.0 demo was the first step. The planet-side wrecks just look so cool. They did say there's a challenge on how to blend the terrain to the ships, as the terrain is still very early days. So they haven't quite got that figured out yet, but they're working on it. Also, things like erosion and decay in the desert will be different to swamps, so they need to figure that out. That's just going to be so cool, seeing these things erode over time. It is a high-level goal to have them in space by the end of the year, and then as planets become more on board, we will get them on planets too. This is just the most exciting thing for me so far. I mean, what a great ATV. Cargo system, something I'm hugely interested in, and wreck salvaging and so forth. Awesome stuff. Anyway, tell me your thoughts. Can I get a hype? So, in this week's Reverse the Verse, as usual now they go back through ATV. We started with the Drake Dragonfly and we had the Squadron 42 art director Paul Jones just taking us through some more information about the Dragonfly. Now, they'd begun working with the smallest ship components and showed it to Chris Roberts after they created what they thought was a good Dragonfly concept, and Chris said it's just too big. So they had to go to using the vehicle components like for your Ursa, because it is just another class smaller than your smallest ship. The first question they had was, will the planetary mode evolve? For example, hitting bumps, will you take damage or get air, basically? And he says that it does obviously hark to the Star Wars pod races. They're already working on high-level variants from other manufacturers. This is something that's not really been requested, but they had some downtime and Chris just said, you know, go ahead, whatever you want to do. So we will see other ship manufacturers making pod races, which is very, very cool. Obviously, the Dragonfly isn't just going to be the only one, but they never really addressed the actual question. But you can see from one of the scenes in this whole shebang of the Drake Dragonfly, where they took a bit of an impact with the Dragonfly, and you can see he gained a bit of damage. So I would have assumed that, yes, there is going to be some form of damage or, you know, jumping ramps and so forth in the Dragonfly, and I'm pretty sure we'll see that. I can just imagine having races on planets. It is just so cool. Anyway, next question. Can you tell us anything about the Banu Merchantman? They finally got the question out. Nothing to do with the Drake Dragonfly, but never mind. And he said it's obviously had its first round of concept, and they're currently in the process of getting the second round concept ready. They'll hopefully line up the same concept artist as before. They just need to work on the interior concept. They're happy with the exterior. They're also working out the style guide and the tech for the Banu. So what is it that makes the cool, you know, a cool hook for the Banu? Like the Xi'an, we have floating steps and then new ship tech. They need something for the Banu. Now the question after that was the same, but for the Karak, the Anvil Karak. And they say it's very similar to the Banu Merchantman. It needs a second concept pass. They've done many of the Anvil ships, the smaller ships, so the manufacturer's style guide is pretty much done. And it wouldn't take half as much time. But again, they need to work out the visual hook for these larger ships. So the final question for Paul Jones was about the Polaris. And he says it's looking very, very slick. It was finished, but Chris Roberts wanted some more visuals, you know, action shots and stuff ready for marketing. The Polaris, if you don't know, is a new corvette, which is to replace the Idris, which then just became a frigate because it was so big. But it actually sounds like it's practically ready to be sold. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that very, very soon. So after that, we spoke to Nathan Dearsley, who is talking about derelict ships, in particular, obviously, planets and space, like we saw in Around the Verse. He said it was always a plan to do it with every ship. 3.0 demo was the first visual sort of we saw of this. The inspiration clearly came from Star Wars Episode 7. They did say that these wrecks don't just want to be just straight off forward static things on the floor. They want to have emotion and like human aspects to it. So there will be maybe people making a home out of it, having little chimney stacks like we saw here. Just adding little touches to sort of tell stories ambiently rather than, you know, having narration. They say it's all ready to go. Very exciting stuff. He said it will look a lot better than what we have seen, and he put it together very, very rapidly. The plan is to have loads of these made with different compositions, different stories, different layouts, which will allow for creative missions. They'll populate it. So cool. Also, there may be some buried underneath sand, and so if you start walking on top, you may hear cracks of glass and so forth. Very much like the scene in Oblivion. Visually, he says there may be nothing there to see, but there will be something underneath. So maybe scanners will allow you to find these derelict ships. What we saw in Around the Verse and what we're seeing here is 100% in-engine. They can even run around it now, so it's practically a gaming level which you can run around in and experience. They are thinking about gunplay from these scenes, so how will the FPS work within these areas? He did mention that the scene we saw took 1 day to put together, so very, very quick. They have libraries and libraries of awesome stuff to create these really cool scenes, so I'm sure we'll start seeing them very, very quickly. First question is, are they procedural or artist-driven? And he says, in order to get the quality that we see, they have to be handcrafted, but they will be procedurally distributed, so they can create them by hand and then spread them out procedurally, so there'll be many of them. Next question, was the planet the same as the one we saw in 3.0? And it wasn't. And then the final question is, were the wind effects real? So things like flapping cloth, is this going to happen? And he says the CryEngine has an environment tab. Every planet you can change the gravity, the wind direction, the velocity, and even sort of wind events, so it may vary from time to time, being quite strong and then settling down and pulsing and so forth. Obviously, the CryEngine is used to being just a flat plane. They are transferring all this information to the planet, so a sphere, shape. They are thinking about things like fields of grass blowing in the wind, and they want to, There's a lot of plans, and it's coming together very, very well. Procedural planets were not something we were supposed to have for a long, long time, and it's coming so quickly. Anyway, that was Reverse the Verse. I'm so excited for these procedural planets and derelicts and so forth. Most exciting. So this week we also had a Reverse the Verse subscribers edition, which was the audio team from the UK. We had 3 members of the audio team from the United Kingdom's office. First question they had was, how do you create your sound effects in-game? Are they digital or physical? And they say they are not limited to either, so they use both methods. Next question was, they said, can you walk us through the planetary entry and exit sounds like we heard from 3.0? And they say they have various ways to have sounds from external forces, things like bulkheads vibrating. Sounds will eventually change depending on the ship's size, the materials they're made from, plus various manufacturers will have different audio to reflect the differences between quality. So MISC, for example, or Origin, very, very clean, very expensive ships, will sound probably less rickety compared to your Drake ships, which will have more of a rattle to them. In atmosphere also, wind and external forces may be better dampened in the posher ships, but when it comes to speed and length of entry, they will be reflected in audio. They don't want the sound to always just be the same. They say they are not truly happy with the game sounds right now. They want everything to be great, but it's difficult to get everything done so quickly with the amount of time they have. They know what needs to be done, but it is all just about time, and I'm sure they will get round to it. So third question, how will sounds obscured by other objects alter to the listener? So will sounds bounce off walls? And they say they're actually working on this right now. So basically they're taking a sound source and working it outwards. Reflection, which is what it's called, is one of the tasks needed, which will just really place you in the world. They've got a good plan for it, and they're always aiming to get either be the best or better than the best. So yes, it will come. Something they mentioned also when it comes to the dynamic music system is that music will sound different in different areas of the verse. So you travel more to an alien area, it will sound a lot different compared to, say, Terra, for example. So next question, will you remove or dampen sounds which happen outside of space stations when you are inside them? And they say along with the reflection sounds, this is also being worked on. They are putting the finishing touches to occlude the outside sounds, but also have more of an interesting internal sound as well. So yes, that is coming along soon. Will we get to swap out or customize each manufacturer's bitching Betty or your ship's voice computer sound? And he says yes, it is a long-term goal to swap out voice packs. They have discussed things like multi-crew bitching Bettys, where maybe only the pilot and the navigator will need to hear that, rather than everyone else in the cockpit or in the ship. But as much more content comes in, how much feedback do you really want from your ship's voice? You say it may give players more control to decide what they want announcing to them. So next question, will sound be perceived differently between players? Say if one player was punched by another one, would the puncher hear a different audio variant compared to the punchee, or even from a bystander? And he says absolutely, the sound is based around 3 perspectives. You've got the first person perspective, third person perspective being the player as well, but then they've also got the non-local player perspective. The punchee would hear it more sort of, rigid and robust because they're being hit, but for the puncher it would be more of a point sound from where his fist is. They do already have this sort of thing with weapons, etc., but they will work it into everything else. Will there be a sonic boom with atmospheric flight and entry, etc., and will players be able to hear it who are not in the ship? And they say it's very interesting because they have talked about different planet atmospheres and how each will sound differently, but it would also depend on the atmospheric density of each planet. They've not actually thought about it yet, but love getting these ideas from the community, as it sounds like they'll try and figure it out and put that in there somewhere. So next question, will there be audible cues for weapons, for example, its functionality as they degrade, maybe a gun jamming, etc. And they did say that too much feedback can go the wrong way, so having multiple clicks or beeps, etc. can be overwhelming. But having said that, there's no reason why they can't. They have talked a lot about ship degradation, as mentioned before. They're not sure how it will affect FPS weapons over time. They did say they will look into it, but they don't know that much level of detail when it comes to the gun degradation. So until they get that information, they can't say. Something else he wanted to point out about ship sounds is that the quantum drives currently all sound the same for each ship. They do want to make it a different sound for each manufacturer, which will just help you personalize your ships. The same goes for degradation, so would a door sound change over time, or if you did a bodged job repair, would it vary as well? He did say that two people could have the same ship, but if you had different components, those ship sounds from those components will be completely different. Again, just adding to the recognizable character of your ship. If you're driving someone else's ship, you should be able to tell just based on the sounds. So, next question is to do with the jukebox, and will the hangar be the only place we can have one, and also will we ever be able to hear other people's music in hangars? And he says no, there will be music in your ship. They'd say there's no reason why they can't have that source coming from there. It is feasible to have your music heard by other players in your hangar, however, the legalities won't allow it. They did say that they want music content to hopefully be created by the community as well, so having community bands, and as you can imagine, just playing in ships or live venues and so forth. A great reason to have this. I mean, I do intend on doing my own acoustic set, but that is a long way off. Plus, you've got the unofficial Star Citizen soundtrack, very, very cool. So yes, it sounds like community-created music is something they want to look for in the future. Next question is there any thoughts into the music of the 2900s and beyond? He said it's something that's very intriguing. They love the idea of sculpturing new genres, so maybe mixing some of our music currently to create subcultures. Again, user-generated content will be great. Hopefully they'll have things like music charts and so forth, who knows. So, second to last question, any plans for in-game radio stations? And if so, would it just be a long loop, or would they be updated as time goes on? And he says it's definitely something they've thought about and are excited about, but we need to think more about it. It needs to be dynamic, and also maybe context to where you are in the verse, so certain systems will have different music to others. He did say that he wants band or musician to be a career type, so maybe making credits from performing and so forth. But again, they want to get real-world people to bring this to the verse. I hope to do a radio station in the verse and maybe play other people's songs, so they would send me their music and I would play it over the bandwaves and so forth. Very, very cool, but we'll have to see what the potential is. So, final question. Can we expect to see different effects from voice communications dependent on the ship sending it or receiving them? So, maybe Drake would have a lesser sound compared to Origin, etc. And also, will distance and stellar phenomena play any role? And he says there's nothing stopping them from doing this, so yes, they want to really sort of model radio properly with wavelengths and so forth. So raising a ship at a maximum distance may be broken up and staticky, but again, there's no reason why they can't have different ships having different quality radios and communication devices. Anyway, that was the audio RTV. Very, very cool. Some great questions and answers. Let me know your thoughts. So also this week we had a new Lawmaker's Guide to the Galaxy. This week, senior writer Will Weisbaum explores the Baker system. We had a new edition of Something Every Tuesday titled Phoenix Rising, in which we sit down with the fictional RSI lead ship designer. I've not read it yet, but I'm sure there will be some mention of the new Polaris. And finally, a new post titled Galactic Tour's fan favourite flyer, quite a mouthful, in which we get to vote on our favourite racer between the Origin M50 and the Origin 350R. The winner will be on sale again. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch, SuperMacBrothers Ryan. For every 50 followers we get up to 2,000, I will be giving away a $10 gift card. It's a lot of fun getting to talk to you all. We have our own private Discord. Do come along and say hello. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you for watching, and thank you to our subscribers, plus a massive thank you to our patrons as you make this possible. If you like what we do and want to help us make it better, follow the link in the description to our Patreon page to learn more.